Grandma got run over by a reindeer.
Welcome back to Where You Live. I usually wait a little bit, Eric, so we can hear the words, but I don't know. Grandma got run over by a reindeer.
Is that showing the true spirit of Christmas? I don't know.
Got to have a little fun.
Yeah,
okay.
You're right. You're right.
Okay.
Hey, folks, it's so good to have you with us. We're broadcasting from the Concierge Landscape Studios. We're brought to you by Extreme Exteriors. And we've been talking about age discrimination lawsuits. It's kind of the new flavor of the month currently with discrimination.
Yeah, and we've been talking
cases.
about organizations that test for discriminatory situations. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean it is astounding. Like we said, here you have organizations that are getting money from government agencies, from others, for funding. They've got to prove their worth, and if they don't prove their worth, Lord forbid that they actually eradicate or take care of something. If they did, they would have to go away. So they have to show that, hey, we're really needed, and so. Because of that, they're pushing the boundaries.
I want to make clear, though, to everyone that we do absolutely adhere to fair housing law. We want to adhere to fair housing law. We think it's right to adhere to fair housing law. I don't like someone trying to entrap me into a situation.
Exactly. And the truth of the matter is there are some things that are certainly clear-cut in terms of the definition of what would be considered discrimination. There are some other things, though, that I think are kind of pushing it because
and I have a story about that.
I think they're going too far.
I have a story about that. Well, one of my site managers at a rental property, it's a fairly large rental community, got an email from someone saying, we're interested in renting an apartment at your place. We need a one-bedroom apartment, but we have a disability that makes it impossible for us to sign a 12-month lease. Would you consider a month-to-month lease? Now, we'd never been posed that question before. And this site manager said, well, our policy is 12-month lease.
Yeah.
They came back and said, well, we're going to sue you. I mean, they said this in the email. We're going to sue you for discrimination because you're discriminating against us in violation of the Fair Housing Act and the Americans with Disabilities Act.
Because the claim is that their disability required
a month-to-month lease rather than a 12-month lease. Now, what was surprising about this, I went to the Multi-Housing Association and said, what's going on? Has anyone else heard this issue raised? Because we've been dealing with the issue of making physical accommodations for people with disabilities. In other words, physical accommodations to the structure or to whatever, entries or cabinet height or support bars in the bathrooms. People with disabilities are allowed to make those structural changes if they want to rent the property. We have to allow that, and we do. But for someone to bring up an administrative issue and say that their disability required that our policies and procedures be changed, that was entirely new. No one had heard of it.
Yes, and the fact that at any point that the owner of the property or an association board now is asking for clarification, wanting to see some proof that this is the requirement. And the fact that you asked the question, that is proof of discrimination instead of, no, can you show us what you need?
Yeah.
And if you can, we'll oblige, but we want to see
explain why. And we called the attorney and had her respond because we knew we were in dangerous ground.
Well, we've got someone who's been hanging on the phone for a long time, but he knows that we're pretty opinionated.
He knows that we're big talkers.
That's right. And that is a person that is a property manager extraordinaire with us at New Concepts.
Of course.
We have Matt Lupkis with us. Hello, Matt.
Hello there.
Hi, Matt. Thanks for hanging in.
Yeah, thank you.
Now, we've been talking about this idea of age discrimination lawsuit. You've been dealing with this at one of the properties in your portfolio, haven't you?
Yeah. It's more of a got the familial status kind of spin to it, but yeah, absolutely.
Okay, kind of encapsulate for our listeners and tell everybody what this is about.
Okay, well, essentially, we had a homeowner that was opting to rent out their condo, and the person that was in there violated some of the rules, and so
some of the homeowner association rules.
Yeah. The
Which
rules,
one in particular?
This one was that they were actually running a business out of the unit, and the approach was it was actually a daycare, I believe. And so the approach to them was that there was actually more people residing in the condominium that was actually permitted by the declaration.
So the declaration permitted how many people in the 2-bedroom?
Yeah, I believe it was 3.
Okay, the declaration of the association permitted 3 people, and this renter had more than that.
Yes.
Okay.
And so the association served the owner the notice, stating that the renter was in violation, and the owner fought it quite extensively, and ultimately the tenant wound up moving out on their own will.
Okay.
Well, let me ask you this, if I could interrupt. Now, how long was that fight between the owner and the association board on that issue?
From what I gather, it was at least 4 months.
Okay. And during this time, the person is continuing to
reside
there and enjoy the property like they always have.
Yep, absolutely. Yep.
So the renters moved out. So the association said, now you're in compliance. You don't have someone breaking the rules anymore.
Right.
And then what happened?
Well, the tenant on their way out felt that they were being discriminated against for familial status and filed a complaint with the HUD, Housing and Urban Development. And so
they were basing that on the fact that they had more than 3 people, and some of those were children.
Yes.
So
absolutely.
Even though the association was saying it was about the numbers of people,
right,
this renter felt discriminated against because she had children.
Right,
I
absolutely.
See. Yeah.
Yep, that's exactly how it went. And so the associations basically had to file with their insurance company, and there's ongoing preparation. And ultimately, HUD is stating that they need to alter their governing document, their Declaration of Covenants,
because they can't. That's discriminatory.
Yeah. Well, yeah. The documents were drafted in 1983, and things have changed then.
I see.
Well, I want to get into that a little bit, but for our listeners, man, I want some of them to kind of appreciate some of the things that have been asked for, because when HUD steps in, there's been a lot of information that they were asking and demanding.
Yeah, they were asking for they wanted a record from the last 3 years of all sales, the contact information from the previous owner to the new owner. They wanted all records of personal information for all renters and homeowners.
Everyone in the association.
Essentially, yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
And all copies of leases and everything else.
Now, the association will certainly know when a property changes hands and when a new owner takes place, but information about the sales, they have no information about that.
Yeah. It's there was just no way to produce all that information.
Sure.
A lot of that you just don't track that.
Well, the association doesn't even have the authority to collect those documents.
Well, yeah, and then you have to who gives them the authority to turn over that information?
There you go.
Get personal releases from all these.
Oh,
folks.
yeah, good point.
And I mean, how much time would that have taken? To try? I mean, we can't. It's hard enough to try and tell people that water's going to be shut off for 2 hours because of a repair, emergency maintenance, right? Let alone contacting people for that.
Yeah. So it's turned into quite the fiasco, and it was all from my understanding, it was mostly retaliatory out of retaliation.
Yeah. So HUD did make the decision, though, that this provision in the declaration was discriminatory. That restricted the number of occupants to 3 in a 2-bedroom.
Right.
And so now they're requiring that the association change their documents.
Yes. Yep.
So
what's interesting is this is kind of similar to the story with the Sun Sentinel 2. Here you have a situation where it's interesting, Matt. Now, The association was named, but was the owner of the property named in this?
The owner of the property was actually released.
How is that possible?
That was our question as well, considering the association is not the landlord in this instance.
Holy cow. And this is just what Gene said earlier today. People do not understand or refuse to understand what a homeowners association is and what ownership is.
Say, hey, Matt, we've got to take a quick break. Can you hang on with us for our last segment to ask a few more questions?
Sure, absolutely.
We'll do that, folks. We're talking to property manager Matt Lupkis with New Concepts Management about an age discrimination lawsuit that has been proposed here in the Twin Cities. We'll talk more with Matt about this after these messages.